Welcome to the RaaP, Kyle. Here we are. It's January. We're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to run at the year.
Thank you,
How's it
man.
going?
It's good. It's good. Great start. Great start to the year. Kind of excited. Feel a little bit rejuvenated, ready to run.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. Just little bit there between Christmas and New Year's, and we're ready to rock. Man, I think we got a good topic today. Something that we've both got a lot of energy around, and excitement for. So I'm sure we'll end up feathering in some technology somewhere. But we're actually going to a little bit more like, I don't know, maybe like an execution basics kind of idea, right? I mean, it's January. Hopefully, plans are set, goals are set, and it is time to go from kind of planning, ideation, to execution. And closing that gap between idea and execution, massively important. All right, and so I think our goal today is really kind of run through some best practices. What do you think?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I'll probably be more hyperbolic about it than you on some of it. Where part of it was checking LinkedIn, and you just scroll, nothing but people talking about thought leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and that is good, right? Like I kind of poo poo on it a little bit, but thought leadership is good. Taking best practices, providing frameworks, but if that's where you stop, then there's no actual outcome, right? And so that isn't the goal line. I think that's the piece that when I tend to go meh on people
Yeah.
talking about it, it's not because that's not a good first step. It's that that's only the first step, right? And that there's a whole lot of other steps after it that actually produce the outcomes, and the outcomes are all that matter, right? The plan that goes into it, the execution that goes into it, that is only so good as the outcome that it produces. And so you've got to actually drive it forward past the cool PowerPoints and the AI crafted blurbs in
Mm-hmm.
your LinkedIn. So
I'll tell you, it's a great thing for those people that you are busy executing, because if you had all the time in the world, you would probably be the ultimate LinkedIn troll. Man, you would just be raining on people's parades, all day, in a very pointed way, I'm
yeah,
sure. So fortunately, we're keeping you plenty busy enough that you don't have any time for that. So, we were talking a little bit beforehand, right? And just trying to boil it down to some things. I think, one of the lessons I've learned in the last couple years is, you know, previously when I would come out of, some sort of planning cycle, whether it was, my cup of coffee in the morning, planning my day, or whether it was, a longer 2, 3 week sort of thing where I'm planning for a year or 2 or 3 years or whatever. And a lot of my time would be spent thinking, okay, like what are the things that we need to do? What does it look like at the end of this? Right? Like, how is that going to happen? And, one thing that's really helped me, is now a lot of times, yes, I still think about those things, but I'm also thinking about, what is the team that is going to help me actually execute here? Whether that's individuals, whether that's, third parties, whether that's, sub teams, whatever it is. But, you know, obviously, like, nothing great happens kind of in a vacuum or by yourself, right? And so I've really worked to include a lot of that, and that's an easy one to immediately get in action on, because you can reach out, right? You can share the idea, you can start to enroll people in a vision, in a goal, in an end state. And so, you know, probably went a little long there, but that kind of first thing, right, is who is the team to help me execute on this thing.
well, it's probably one of, if not, the more important pieces of both the execution side, the culture side, driving towards those outcome, um, is the team that you put together in, fit for purpose around what it is that you're trying to drive towards. Um, you can't overstate that. I don't think, as far as how important it is to build the right team around that. To, as you talk about, sanity check or bounce ideas off of, put things into motion, have a, common alignment around some of those principles or thoughts with different perspectives. So you get kind of the best of both, where we're aligned towards a purpose, but we have different perspectives on how to get there, and that iron sharpening iron. So it's very clear in all sorts of ways that you can only go so far by yourself. And so you need people to really bring about big outcomes. You want big outcomes, you want big impact, you need the right team.
Yeah. The thing I like about it is, I just have a ever increasing kind of appreciation and awareness that regardless of what I'm doing, right, there is a team involved. Whether it's, my wife, my family, my friends, obviously in a work context, there's a team. But, like bringing intentionality to that is one of the things that allows me to get started. It allows me to shift from that, hey, I'm planning, I'm thinking about who those people are, and then bring it into execution. One of the next things we're going to talk about is like actually like getting traction, tactical things you can do, right? And once you have an awareness of that team, you can bring the intentionality in this very concrete step of have a conversation, right? Have a conversation with individuals, maybe with a larger team, about what it is we're doing, what it is we need, and like how we're actually going to begin. But that's a very like tactical step that sets things in motion, right? What we really want to be accomplishing, especially in January, right, is like we don't want to be, we're almost halfway through January. Like our things should be in motion, right? If that's kind of the planning cycle you're on, the execution cycle you're on, right? Things should be in motion. Things should not be sitting on a shelf if they're important to us to accomplish this year. And a very tactical piece is connect with those people who you've identified are important, for this. And so, that's been a real shift in like my ability to execute over the last 4 or 5 years, especially. So, I know that maybe kind of brings in some of the next one. This is where you are, uniquely great. I mean, I think I execute okay. You're a master, right? I mean, you're very, very good in this field, and then getting things started, getting them rolling. Kind of what do you lean on for that? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. First, I would say one, like I'm a pretty simple person, and I probably live my life by what are simple cliches almost, or simple taglines, but they're actually, there's a lot of wisdom in those things. It's why they catch on, or why they exist. And I think one of the first things is a bias for action, and this is the Nike "just do it," right? And so for them, it's talking about being active, and but it's this bias for action of you can make all the best plans in the world. And again, like I'm not downplaying the importance of a plan, because that is a how you actually get the best outcome is having a great plan, or having kind of thought into what it is that you're about to do. You don't necessarily just jump in without any thought, but you don't get stuck in the I don't know what to do. I don't know, like this thing where we kind of organizations tend to sit in of like, well, we need 30 more governance calls, or we've got to have 10 more meetings to figure out what's obvious around, like, no, just put it into motion. Like, start taking the first step. Have a belief or a conviction around the plan or the thing, the outcome that you want. If you have a high conviction around the outcome, you'll tend to gravitate towards action. Is my general belief. And so having that high conviction to push you into action, to just start doing the first things, because then you get the feedback loops, right? Once the plan, the PowerPoint isn't going to give you any kind of feedback on what's working, what's not working. It's just the first step. And then you start to put some of those things in motion. And then you get that feedback of, okay, yep, this part was good. We didn't know about this risk, or we didn't know about this thing. Okay, we need to adjust. And that's what allows for the changing of the plan with some agility, while still having a good plan in place, with contingencies, all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the biggest pieces is bias for action. And that goes back to the team concept that you're talking about, where you've got to build that in culturally, where people have that kind of good initiative, where, you see a problem, fix a problem. You see, this goes back to our old days. When you're going in and clearing a house, you see work, do work, right? If you see something that's not covered down on, step up and cover down on it. And you need a team of people doing that, because one person can't hold 360-degree view. And so
Yeah.
you need that team of having that bias for action, which I think leads us, into another really important point, so that it's not total chaos where everybody's operating completely independently.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, this next best action thing is, it seems so simple, but I mean, this is applicable whether you're an individual contributor, whether you're kind of in middle management, director, VP, whatever, or whether you're an executive, right? Now, that next best action may vary, right? Those types of actions tend to be grouped a little bit differently depending on that role. But, as simple as it is, right? Like, what is the single next best action? Take it, you know? Um, Having said that, to your point, you don't want chaos, right? You don't want chaos. And what I have found over time, the single best way to avoid that is to be very, very clear on the desired end state, right? To be individually clear on the desired end state, and to be collectively clear through communication on the desired end state. So like, what is it? And kind of here's how I would, define the desired end state. It's a little bit different than a goal, a little bit different than a mission statement, right? It is something that in, very, very clear terms, people understand what is our new reality after this thing is accomplished, right? So like, what is different? Ideally, you're tying it to, some KPIs or some metrics or something that's like very objective and that you can measure, right? But in very simple terms, what is the desired end state? And in military planning, the thing that was interesting in that is, before you went out, right, you had your rehearsals, you had your planning, you had all that stuff. But if you're kind of leaving a safe area, going in somewhere else, and you're going out with a group of people, you spot check, typically even, more junior members of the team. Hey, what is our desired end state? Right? Like, what is it we're trying to accomplish? Right? You want to understand this from top to bottom. Right? So kind of bringing this full circle back to that team, being able to communicate that desired end state is massively important. It's the thing that enables, everyone to actually take next best action, because, if we've surrounded ourselves with good people that have sound judgment, that, have a free flow of knowledge, that understand the desired end state, then they can take the next best action. And it is going to be directionally correct, right? It is going to move us closer to that end state than we were before. And, that's where you really start to get some real impact.
Yeah, I think, to kind of put it simply, is it's what allows individual action for a collective outcome, right? Where if you take two extremes, where on the individual action, if you don't have that end state, you have to spell it out, so explicitly to the team of like, you're going to pick up the hammer, you're going to bring your arm back at 30 degrees, and then you're going to, you've got to tell, because and that's, and in some certain, some circumstances, that's what you got to do with certain types of processes. But imagine like the moment that hammer isn't available or something is different, like the whole thing breaks down, right? Like, so you have to be super explicit if you're doing it that way. And if you don't, then what you end up with is, well, I'm over here building, a car, and somebody else is like, well, I thought I was building a house, and somebody over here else, I'm building a spaceship, and we're like, well, none of us are building anything that's collectively together. And so having that end state and the communication piece is really key, where, that leader is almost kind of, if you tell them once, tell them 1,000 times. You've got to be communicating again and again that description of what that end state is, as if we were actually standing in the room that is now complete, and I can see it with my own eyes, so that we collectively, as we go and we contribute our individual pieces, are bringing about that vision and kind of manifesting it into action. And then that way, when the hammer's not available, not a problem, because I know what it is that ultimately we're trying to achieve. So I can individually act, it's actions in the absence of orders is what this allows for. And, the more you scale an organization, the more important that becomes. It's easy to communicate with, 5 people in a garage. It gets really, really challenging when you're thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and you want to have collective action.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, there's obviously a whole wide world of kind of best practices you can do to go from kind of ideation to execution. Um, I also believe that just taking these three we've talked about right here, right? Consider the team, talk to them, engage them, inform them, make sure they're aware of the end state in clear, simple terms, take the next best action individually and enable the people on the team to do it. Like, you do those three things, I mean, you're going to execute at a level, assuming you haven't been doing them, you're going to execute at a level that you haven't before. You can go watch another video, you can go watch another thought leader out there talking about something else. That's fine. It's not gonna get any of your stuff done. Like, you can truly just take these things, implement them, practice them, and you will go from someone who is doing this amount to someone that is doing some amount more than that. Um, in a way that, like, for me at least, like, these types of things actually, like, reduce anxiety, right? They bring a lot more clarity to my own life around the things I'm working on. You know, what I've found is, like, when I'm anxious around things, that maybe in areas where I'm feeling like maybe I'm not executing it at the level I want to, or where I'm not seeing the progress I'm wanting to, I can typically go back to one of these things and they're out of whack, right? Like, either I'm not really clear on what I'm trying to accomplish, I haven't engaged the people I need to help, or I'm just not taking the next best action that I truly know is there, and I just need to do it, right? Like, in that for me has been a game changer. Like, implementing these, and look, it's not something you, like, read or hear this thing and you're like, oh wow, I just do that now, right? Like, I mean, this stuff is a practice. It's a practice, and there's phases of your life where, like, you're better at it, and some where you're not, and you try to look at those places where you're exercising it well and apply it across other domains. That's been my experience, at least. But
Well,
um,
I found that um, the most effective things like this are often the most simple. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, right? Like,
yeah,
I think that's the piece, right? Where it's almost to the point of being captain obvious of, hey, put things into action. Um, but it's usually not like the really crazy, sexy, new whiz bang thing that's the transformation. It's the small discipline, the just go put one foot in front of the other,
yeah,
as a best practice. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, it turns out if you keep doing that, you get pretty active, and all of a sudden, like, these things start to build, and then you get to a scale, or you get to a level of where, cool, I'll buy the latest thing to help me that 1 degree. But for most organizations out there, even really large ones, brilliance at the basics is always what we come back to.
I've got nothing to add. I think that's perfect. We got stuff to do. Let's go take our next best action.
Let's go.